My name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the last 24 hours in the news. It is 1:23 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, and today is June 24th, 2025. Here are the top U.S. news highlights from the past 24 hours. Wall Street rallies after Fed signals rate cut. Major indexes climbed following dovish remarks from Fed Vice Chair Michelle Bowman, suggesting policy rate reductions may be on the horizon amid cooling inflation and labor market concerns. Notable maneuvers: Tesla shares surged 9.7%, fueled by the debut of self-driving taxis in Austin. Energy stocks declined as oil prices eased slightly. U.S. launches strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. The U.S. military executed overnight precision strikes targeting Iran's nuclear facilities at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan using B-2 bombers and bunker busters. Iran retaliated with missile launches on U.S. air bases in Qatar and Iraq, though no casualties were reported. The White House confirmed strategic monitoring of the situation. Democrats push war powers resolution. 3 House Democrats introduced a resolution urging Congress to reclaim authority over U.S. military actions in Iran, effectively limiting the gross old man who paints himself orange's ability to deploy forces without legislative approval. Second heat wave alerts across East and Midwest. Intense heat gripped much of the eastern U.S. and Midwest, with record highs in some cities prompting widespread health warnings and strain on power and transit systems. U.S. home resales tick up. Existing home sales rose 0.8% in May to 4.03 million units, a modest recovery despite persistently high mortgage rates near 7%, the highest May figure since 2009. Americans concerned about Iran conflict escalation. A Reuters poll revealed that 79% of Americans fear Iran might target U.S. civilians, and the gross old man who paints himself orange's approval rating dropped to 41% amid escalating tensions. As far as markets goes, the Fed clues and political turmoil are shaping investor mood. Tech leads while energy dips. Foreign policy: U.S. strikes signal bold escalation. Congress is actively contesting unilateral military use. Energy and economy: heat waves and home market trends reflect domestic stress points and inflation pressures. Public sentiment: widespread anxiety over conflict highlights political risk ahead. Market summary: the S&P 500 closed at $600.15, which is up 0.96%, following solid gains in tech and financial sectors. Dow Jones DIA finished at 425.72, gaining 0.93%, supported by strength in industrial and energy stocks. Nasdaq ended at 531.65, rising 0.93%, buoyed by strong performance from large cap tech names. Fed optimism: remarks from Fed Vice Chair Bowman hinted at upcoming rate cuts, boosting market sentiment. China, Israel, Iran ceasefire hope. Oil prices dropped significantly as reports emerged of a tentative ceasefire, reducing geopolitical concerns. Sector rotation: tech and financials led the gains, while energy lagged due to easing crude costs. Oil markets: Brent fell 7.2% to around 68.5 a barrel on ceasefire news. That's like a $6 drop, I think, from what we've been looking at. A $7 drop. And from what I've heard, the ceasefire was immediately violated, so that's something I'm going to need to verify. WTI slipped, similarly easing inflation worries while boosting sentiment in equities. Market outlook: interest rates: investors are now anticipating a possible Fed rate cut in mid to late 2025. Geopolitics: continue to calm in the Middle East, which could support further equity gains. Renewed tensions might reverse momentum. Energy prices, oil is the key variable. Price stability will likely help sustain the current rally. Here are the hazardous weather threats across the U.S. over the coming week, especially important for people in central, eastern, and midwestern regions. Severe thunderstorms and flooding through the 23rd and 24th. Expect heavy afternoon storms with possible damaging winds, large hail, and flash flooding, particularly in the Midwest and central states. Tuesday, showers and a strong late-day thunderstorm may bring similar hazards, gusty winds, hail, and rapid storm runoff in urban areas. Keep a charged phone and NOAA radio handy. Avoid driving through flooded areas and seek sturdy indoor shelter away from windows. Heat wave returns June 25th through 27th. Midweek temperatures will heat up again with highs reaching 96 to 97 across the central southern U.S. Heat health risks include heat exhaustion, heat stroke, especially for outdoor workers, athletes, young children, and seniors. Hydrate frequently and schedule outdoor activities for cooler parts of the day. Check on vulnerable individuals, that would be pets, infants, and older adults. And use air conditioning or cooling centers if your home overheats. Late week storm risk around June 29th. Expect afternoon storms likely bringing gusty winds, possible hail, and more localized flooding. Here are the top international news highlights from the past 24 hours, June 24th through 25th. Ceasefire declared in Israel-Iran conflict. The gross old man who paints himself orange announced a complete and total ceasefire between Israel and Iran, stating it was now in effect, though both countries continued intermittent missile launches shortly afterwards. So yeah, they continued launching missiles right after the ceasefire was supposedly announced. So there's a heads up on that. Despite the ceasefire's declaration, Iran's FM insisted no halt unless Israel stopped its operations. Explosions were still reported in Tel Aviv and Beersheba around the start of the truce. Markets react. Oil and risk assets surge. Crude prices dropped nearly 3%, with U.S. oil dropping to $66.8 a barrel, its lowest since mid-June, due to reduced tensions around the Strait of Hormuz. Global markets rallied. S&P and NASDAQ futures climbed. Asia-Pacific equities saw gains, and the U.S. dollar weakened versus yen and euro. Fed watched ahead of Powell testimony with reduced geopolitical risk. Investor focus shifts from Fed Chair Powell's congressional appearance. Vice Chair Bowman signaled openness to a potential July rate cut, marking a significant pivot. This is something that my friends are pretty skeptical about. So they're saying that they don't think that the rate cuts will be a good thing. So just because Bowman's saying something, I don't know. I don't know who these guys are. Powell, I'm pretty sure, is the one that's been holding the Fed together. So I don't know if those two are agreeing on that. I'm not here to give in-depth analysis. For analysis, go somewhere else like Midas or something. I don't know. Somewhere else. Not me. I'm just giving you an overview of the news. U.S. airbase targeted by Qatar in Iran. Iran launched 6 missiles towards Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Operation of Glad Tidings of Victory, reportedly hitting the base, but with no reported casualties. Qatar intercepted the attack and temporarily closed airspace. Ukrainian village hits by Russian drone strike. Russian drone strike struck a village in the Sumy region, killing an 8-year-old boy, 2 adults, and injuring others. Local authorities marked the strike as another example of civilian harm in the ongoing Ukraine conflict. Why it matters. Diplomatic developments. The ceasefire offers hope for easing regional conflict, though its durability remains uncertain. Economic impact. Oil and equity markets responded favorably, reducing pressure on inflation, and central bankers are closely watching. Security concerns. Iran's missile strike on a U.S. base underscores continued military risk despite diplomatic gestures. Humanitarian toll. The Russian drone attack in Ukraine highlights the ongoing human cost of the broader conflict landscape.